One book, one extraordinary life. 48 chapters of saints, science, and the search for God.
I'm Kai,
And I'm Maya.
and this is our take on Autobiography of a Yogi, chapter by chapter.
A young man returns to the hermitage in Serampore, expecting anger. He abandoned his duties without warning, disappeared for days to chase a Himalayan fantasy, and his guru meets him at the door and says, "Let us go to the kitchen and find something to eat," as if hours and not days had separated them.
Chapter 14, An Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. And I want to say up front, this is the chapter I've been waiting for since we started this whole series. Everything in the book has been leading here. Every miracle was a preview, every saint was a signpost. And now, Mukunda is about to experience directly what all those encounters were pointing toward.
But first, the return. Mukunda arrives shamefaced at the Serampore hermitage. "I am here, Guruji." His shamefacedness speaks more eloquently for him than words could. And Sri Yukteswar's manner is as natural as if hours and not days had separated them. No rebuke, no lecture. "Let us go to the kitchen and find something to eat."
And Mukunda can't leave it alone. His guilt needs addressing even if his guru doesn't feel the need. "Master, I must have disappointed you by my abrupt departure from my duties here. I thought you might be angry with me." And he's bracing himself, right? Because in any normal relationship, teacher or parent or employer, disappearing without a word would provoke anger.
And Sri Yukteswar's response is one of the most remarkable things any teacher says in this entire book. "No, of course not. Wrath springs only from thwarted desires. I do not expect anything from others, so their actions cannot be in opposition to wishes of mine. I would not use you for my own ends. I am happy only in your own true happiness."
Hold on. Wrath springs only from thwarted desires. That's not just a nice thing to say. That's a complete psychological framework in a single sentence. Think about every time you've been angry. Every single time, there was an expectation underneath it, an expectation that was violated. If you remove the expectation, the anger has no ground to stand on. Sri Yukteswar has no expectations of his disciples. He has hopes, he has love, but no demands, and therefore, nothing they do can produce wrath in him. "I would not use you for my own ends." He's not using Mukunda for anything, not for ego, not for service, not for the satisfaction of being obeyed.
And Mukunda is overwhelmed. "Sir, one hears of divine love in a vague way, but for the first time I am having a concrete example in your angelic self. In the world, even a father does not easily forgive his son if he leaves his parents' business without warning. But you show not the slightest vexation, though you must have been put to great inconvenience by the many unfinished tasks I left behind."
They look into each other's eyes, where tears are shining, and a blissful wave engulfs Mukunda. He is conscious that the Lord, in the form of his guru, is expanding the small ardors of his heart into the incompressible reaches of cosmic love. And I think that moment of tearful connection is doing something to Mukunda. It's opening him, softening whatever inner walls were still standing. The guilt he arrived with, the defensive posture, all of it dissolves in the presence of a love that has no conditions and no demands. And that opening is going to matter enormously in what happens next.
And then, a few mornings later, the moment arrives. But it doesn't come the way you'd expect. Mukunda makes his way to Master's empty sitting room to meditate. He has a laudable purpose, but it is unshared by his disobedient thoughts. They scatter like birds before the hunter. He can't concentrate at all. His mind is everywhere except where it should be.
And then Sri Yukteswar's voice sounds from a distant inner balcony. "Mukunda." And Mukunda feels as rebellious as his own thoughts. He mutters to himself, "Master always urges me to meditate. He should not disturb me when he knows why I came to his room." Sri Yukteswar calls again. Mukunda remains obstinately silent. The third time, his tone holds rebuke.
"Sir, I am meditating," Mukunda shouts protestingly. And Sri Yukteswar calls back, "I know how you are meditating, with your mind distributed like leaves in a storm. Come here to me." Snubbed and exposed, Mukunda makes his way sadly to his guru's side. There's something almost comical about it, you know? You can't hide from a man who reads minds. Mukunda is sitting there pretending to meditate, and his guru sees right through the performance from a balcony 2 rooms away.
And here's what I love. Sri Yukteswar doesn't scold him. He says something that combines tenderness with prophecy. "Poor boy, the mountains couldn't give what you wanted." Master speaks caressively, comfortingly. His calm gaze is unfathomable. And then 5 words. "Your heart's desire shall be fulfilled."
Sri Yukteswar seldom indulged in riddles. Mukunda is bewildered. He has no idea what's about to happen. And then his guru strikes gently on his chest above the heart. Just a light touch, nothing dramatic. And what follows is one of the most extraordinary passages in all of spiritual literature. Not a miracle observed from the outside, not a teaching about what might be possible, a direct first-person account of cosmic consciousness, written by someone who experienced it and then spent decades finding the words to describe it.
His body becomes immovably rooted. Breath is drawn out of his lungs as if by some huge magnet. Soul and mind instantly lose their physical bondage and stream out like a fluid-piercing light from his every pore. The flesh is as though dead, yet in his intense awareness, he knows that never before has he been fully alive. His sense of identity is no longer narrowly confined to a body, but embraces the circumambient atoms. People on distant streets seem to be moving gently over his own remote periphery.
And then his perception changes in a way that defies ordinary description. The roots of plants and trees appear through a dim transparency of the soil. He can discern the inward flow of their sap. The whole vicinity lies bare before him. And here's the detail that stops me every time I read it. His ordinary frontal vision is now changed to a vast spherical sight, simultaneously all-perceptive. Through the back of his head, he sees men strolling far down Rygat Road, and he notices a white cow leisurely approaching.
Through the back of his head. That's not metaphor. That's not poetic license. He's describing omnidirectional perception, what he calls a vast spherical sight simultaneously all-perceptive. He can see in every direction at once, and here's the test he puts to it. He notices a white cow who is leisurely approaching down the road. When she reaches the space in front of the open ashram gate, he observes her with his two physical eyes, normal vision. As she passes by, behind the brick wall, he still sees her clearly. The wall is transparent to this new sight. Physical barriers have become irrelevant. Walls, distance, the back of his own skull, none of it obstructs perception anymore.
And then the nature of what he's seeing begins to shift. Everything within his panoramic gaze trembles and vibrates like quick motion pictures. His body, Master's pillared courtyard, the furniture and floor, the trees and sunshine occasionally become violently agitated until all melts into a luminescent sea. He describes it like sugar crystals thrown into a glass of water that dissolve after being shaken. The unifying light alternates with materializations of form, the metamorphoses revealing the law of cause and effect in creation.
And then the vision expands beyond anything local, beyond the Hermitage, beyond Serampore, beyond Bengal. An oceanic joy breaks upon calm, endless shores of his soul. The Spirit of God, I realized, is exhaustless bliss. His body is countless tissues of light. A swelling glory within him begins to envelop towns, continents, the earth, solar and stellar systems, tenuous nebulae, and floating universes. The entire cosmos, gently luminous like a city seen afar at night, glimmers within the infinitude of his being.
And he writes that the sharply edged global outlines faded somewhat at the farthest edges, but there he could see a mellow radiance, ever undiminished. It was indescribably subtle. The planetary pictures were formed of a grosser light. And then this passage, which I think is the most beautiful thing Yogananda ever wrote. The divine dispersion of rays poured from an eternal source, blazing into galaxies, transfigured with ineffable auras. Again and again I saw the creative beams condense into constellations, then resolve into sheets of transparent flame. By rhythmic reversion, sextillion worlds passed into diaphanesis luster. Fire became firmament.
Fire became firmament. I mean, that's poetry, but it's also cosmology. Sextillion worlds pulsing between light and form, condensing and dissolving over and over. And he's not watching this from outside. He is this. I cognize the center of the Imperium as a point of intuitive perception in my heart, irradiating splendor issued from my nucleus to every part of the universal structure. The galaxies are radiating from him, or rather from the same point of consciousness that is both him and everything else.
And blissful Amrita, the nectar of immortality, pulsed through him with a quicksilver-like fluidity. The creative voice of God he heard resounding as Om, the vibration of the cosmic motor. So it's not just vision, it's sound, it's physical sensation. It's a complete transformation of every sense into something that perceives the universe as it actually is. Not dead matter in empty space, but living light vibrating with intelligence.
I want to pause here, because what's being described is not just a vision, it's a change of identity. He doesn't say, I saw the universe. He says the cosmos glimmered within the infinitude of his being. The galaxies were inside him, not metaphorically, as direct experience. His sense of self had expanded to contain everything, and yet there was still a perceiver, still an eye that could witness all of this. That's the paradox of cosmic consciousness as Yogananda describes it. You become everything and remain yourself simultaneously.
And here's the thing, Kai. This is what the book has been building towards since page 1. The healing of cholera through a photograph, the materializing amulet, the levitating saints, the perfume in the air, the 2 kites appearing on the roof, all of those were hints, little cracks in the surface of ordinary reality, suggesting that consciousness is more fundamental than matter. And now Mukunda is experiencing that truth directly. not as a concept, not as a philosophical proposition, but as the total content of his awareness. He is seeing the universe from the inside, and from the inside, it is all one light. Consciousness is fundamental. It always was. Every miracle in this book was just a footnote to this moment.
And then, suddenly, breath returns to his lungs. Just like that, it's over. With a disappointment almost unbearable, he realizes that his infinite immensity is lost. Once more, he is limited to the humiliating cage of a body not easily accommodated to the spirit. Like a prodigal child, he had run away from his macrocosmic home and imprisoned himself in a narrow microcosm.
And Sri Yukteswar is standing motionless before him. Mukunda starts to drop at his holy feet in gratitude for the experience in cosmic consciousness which he had long passionately sought. But his guru holds him upright and speaks calmly, unpretentiously. You must not get overdrunk with ecstasy. Much work yet remains for you in the world. Come, let us sweep the balcony floor. Then we shall walk by the Ganges.
Okay, hold on. Come, let us sweep the balcony floor. You have just experienced the infinite. You have seen galaxies condense and dissolve inside your own consciousness. And your guru says, now pick up a broom. That's Sri Yukteswar in a single sentence. He doesn't say, let us discuss what happened. He doesn't say, how do you feel? He says, get the broom. Because he's teaching Mukunda that samadhi is not an escape from the world. It's the foundation for living more fully in it.
And Mukunda fetches a broom, knowing that Master is teaching him the secret of balanced living. The soul must stretch over the cosmogonic abysses while the body performs its daily duties. And when they set out for a stroll later, he is still entranced in unspeakable rapture. He sees their two bodies as astral pictures, moving over a road by the river, whose essence is sheer light. Everything he looks at, every leaf, every stone, every passing figure, carries the residue of that vision. The world hasn't changed, but his capacity to perceive it has been permanently altered.
And Sri Yukteswar explains as they walk, it is the Spirit of God that actively sustains every form and force in the universe, yet he is transcendent and aloof in the blissful uncreated void beyond the worlds of vibratory phenomena. And then he adds, saints who realize their divinity, even while in the flesh, conscientiously engage in earthly work, they yet remain immersed in an inward beatitude. The Lord has created all men from the limitless joy of his being. Though they are painfully cramped by the body, God nevertheless expects that souls made in his image shall ultimately rise above all sense identifications and reunite with him.
So the teaching is clear. Samadhi is not the end. It's the beginning of a different way of being in the world. You don't leave the world behind. You see it for what it truly is, light masquerading as matter, and you serve it more effectively because of that seeing. Sweep the floor, walk by the river, but know that the floor and the river and the broom and your own hands are all made of the same light you saw in the vision. That's what Sri Yukteswar is modeling for Mukunda. Not escape from the world, but total engagement with the world, grounded in the knowledge of what it actually is.
And Yogananda reflects on what the cosmic vision left him as a permanent lesson. By daily stilling his thoughts, he could win release from the delusive conviction that his body was a mass of flesh and bones, traversing the hard soil of matter. The breath and the restless mind, he saw, were like storms which lashed the ocean of light into waves of material forms, into earth, sky, human beings, animals, birds, trees. No perception of the infinite as one light could be had except by calming those storms. And as often as he silenced those two natural tumults, he beheld the multitudinous waves of creation melt into one lucent sea, even as the waves of the ocean, their tempest subsiding, serenely dissolve into unity.
And he writes that a master bestows the divine experience of cosmic consciousness on his disciple only when, by meditation, the student has strengthened his mind to a degree where the vast vistas would not overwhelm him. The experience can never be given through one's mere intellectual willingness or open-mindedness. Only adequate enlargement by yoga practice and devotional bhakti can prepare the mind to absorb the liberating shock of omnipresence. And then the devotee's intense craving begins to pull at God with an irresistible force. The Lord, as the cosmic vision, is drawn by the seeker's magnetic ardor into his range of consciousness.
So it's a meeting from both sides. The guru prepares you, your own devotion pulls, and God responds. It's not a one-way street, it's a convergence. That's the answer to why Ram Gopal couldn't give it to him. It wasn't about Ram Gopal's ability. Mukunda's own guru had spent months preparing him for this moment. The training at the hermitage, the daily routines, the corrections, the mosquito lessons, the mind reading, even the flight to the mountains and the humbling return.
All of it was preparation. All of it was tuning the instrument until it could receive the cosmic current without burning out.
And this is the promise Sri Yukteswar made in chapter 12. Let your wish be my wish. Mukunda demanded that his guru reveal God to him, and Sri Yukteswar did. Not with words, not with scripture, with a single touch over the heart. And I think it's no accident that this experience comes right after Mukunda's flight to the mountains and his humbling return. He had to try running away. He had to fail. He had to come back with his thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. Only then was he ready to receive what his guru had been waiting to give him.
And that's the pattern of this whole first act of the book, isn't it? You can't force enlightenment. You can't earn it through willpower or endurance or perfect meditation technique. It comes when you stop running, when you surrender, and you let the guru do what only the guru can do. The mountains couldn't give it. Ram Gopal, with his 45 years of cave meditation, said it wasn't his place. Only Sri Yukteswar, at the appointed moment, could deliver what was promised. A gentle touch over the heart, and the universe opens like a flower. And then, a broom. Always a broom. Because the floor still needs sweeping, even after you've seen God.
Next time, the universe stages a very different kind of lesson. Cauliflowers, a materializing feast, and the discovery that even a guru's most ordinary-seeming instructions carry cosmic weight behind them.
Sri Yukteswar is about to prove that the laws governing everyday reality are far more flexible than Mukunda ever imagined. See you next time.